In this episode of View the Right Thing, it's a doubleheader. First up is a modern horror film that has endured for decades and has been referenced countless times in subsequent years in major and small films, examined in depth by film theorists, and gave us one of cinema's classic quotes.
Here's Johnny.
A writer takes his wife and young son to a remote Colorado hotel to act as caretakers during the winter months. As time goes on, the writer's psyche begins to crack while his young son senses danger with a sixth sense in The Shining. Next, years later as an adult, the now grown-up Danny Torrance must protect a young girl with similar abilities from a cult looking to feed off of their powers in Dr. Sleep, in this episode of View the Right Thing.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of View the Right Thing. I'm Wes, and I have my friend, Darling Beat, with me. Hi, Beat.
Hello.
How you doing?
I am great today.
Great today.
Fan-freaking-tastic.
Were you great yesterday as well? Uh-oh. She's not responding.
Maybe not as great.
Maybe not as great, but great today. Okay. Well, we'll take great today. You just gotta take it day by day, right?
Yeah.
So, what's been going on? You have any exciting news? Have you been out to go see any movies or anything?
Okay. So exciting news number one. I got a promotion because I'm awesome. Number two.
Awesome.
Number two. I did venture to the movie theaters and I got to see a movie. You'd be very proud of me, Wes.
What did you see?
What trailers? I seen Top Gun Maverick.
Oh, yay! You saw Top Gun Maverick. Hooray. That's great.
So good.
I'm excited. So let's start with trailers. I don't know if I've seen any trailers. I'm gonna just check my history real quick while you tell me about trailers that you saw that stuck out to you that you're excited about.
Okay, so I seen the new Thor movie. That one looked okay. It looked good. And then I seen the new Buzz Lightyear movie.
Oh yeah, that
which
one
there's
looks
some
fun.
theories. Yeah, there's some theories going around, like that's the movie that Andy seen that made him want to get Buzz and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I don't know if all that's true or not, but the new Buzz Lightyear movie, it looks super cute, super heart touching. Like I don't know, I might cry. I want to see it.
Yeah. Did you get the Mission Impossible trailer?
Oh yeah, I did see that. I did see it, but it was like no talking. It was just him running.
Yeah, just him running. Just Tom Cruise running.
That's
all he ever does.
Just running and jumping,
As one does.
As one does.
Well, that's exciting. So you're excited for Buzz Lightyear. You seem moderately excited for Thor. I got my tickets for Thor yesterday. So they always put a Marvel movie out for my birthday. Like how appropriate is that?
That's so sweet of them.
Yeah. It's usually it's very often, like every 3 years, it's Spider-Man, which is like freaking perfect, right?
Yeah.
But this year it's Thor. It was supposed to be Black Panther 2, I think. And then Black Panther 2 got pushed back. So it ended up being Thor instead, which is fine. I'm happy with Thor.
Do you know when the Black Panther 2 is supposed to come out?
I think November.
Ooh.
Yeah. Unless it gets pushed back again, which is totally possible. That movie's kind of cursed. They've had a lot of problems between Chadwick dying and Letitia Wright, who plays Shuri, is I think maybe a little crazy. She's like an anti-vaxxer, maybe, and sort of was advocating against the vaccine on set to anyone that would listen to her, is my understanding. Causes a lot of problems. And then Lupita Nyong'o, I think, broke her ankle or something during production, and then the director went to the bank and tried to withdraw like a large sum of money out of the bank, and so they called the police on him, and just like like everything that could go wrong on that production pretty much has gone wrong. So
wow,
it's
they're
totally
like, you're suspicious, sir.
yeah. If they push it back again, I would not be surprised. I mean, like it's crazy because they like handcuffed him and stuff. And of course he's a black man in America in the South. So, anyways. So I won't be surprised that gets pushed back. You know what? Teaser dropped. They dropped a teaser for a title, just the title alone. The sequel to Knives Out just got a little teaser. It's going to be called The Glass Onion, I think.
That's such an odd name.
Yeah, so cool. It's a pretty, as the kids would say, that's a baller move to name your movie something like that.
I don't know.
It's bold.
I don't know if the kids will still say that.
Do they? They don't say that anymore? Oh, that's how old I am. Hello, fellow youth. Yeah, so I'm excited for The Glass Onion. So,
Sounds cool. I might have to check out Knives Out. I don't think I've seen that.
It's on our list. It's on our wheel.
Nice.
So you'll definitely check it out at some point. What if it
funny?
If it pulled up today at the end of the episode?
Yeah, it would be so funny.
That would be insane. Okay, so tell me about Top Gun 2. What did you think?
I thought it was really good. I think anybody who grew up during that era and that was a big movie for them would have absolutely bawled and loved it so much.
Yeah.
Me personally, I didn't grow up during the Top Gun era, but I have seen it.
Because you're a young whippersnapper.
Yeah, young whippersnapper. So I loved it though. Like I loved just the scenarios that they were put in. I really liked that, and I think Tom Cruise did a really good job. And I cried a couple times.
A couple times.
It's not like it was. Yeah, it's not like it was sad or anything. But it was sad. Some parts.
Yeah, there was a lot I loved about it. I don't want to get too spoilery with it.
Yeah, so I'm trying to like code it a little bit.
I will say Miles Teller's call sign I love. That kind of got me a little in the feels. And then the moment where Maverick proves to them, that's all I'll say. When he makes his point.
Yes.
Was so freaking amazing.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And can you believe they were in those planes doing all that
No,
stuff?
I
mean, that's crazy.
Every time I've talked about that movie to someone else, I've explained that to them and they're like, no way. And I'm like, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Isn't that freaking awesome?
It's pretty amazing. Okay. Cool. So I'm glad you had a good time. Are you planning to go see anything else anytime soon, or is this like such a rare occasion you have no idea when you'll go out again?
It was for my birthday. It was a rare occasion. We don't really travel out that often. Me and Aaron are homebodies.
Yeah, I hear you.
So we don't really get out that often. So it was nice. He literally was like, "Okay, what do you want to do?" And everything I wanted to do, we did, and it was a good day.
I like that. I like that you did.
Yeah,
everything you wanted
his
to do.
birthday is tomorrow, so I'm excited.
What? So you can do everything he wants to do now?
Yep.
What if he wants to go see another movie?
He's not. He's gonna want to go fishing all day, and I'm gonna cry.
Well, you gotta do what you gotta do, I guess, right?
I'm gonna be so bored. Yeah.
Oh well. You
Anything
got
for
this.
love.
Yeah. All right.
I'll bait his hooks for him.
Well, should we talk about the Shinnin?
The Shinnin? Yeah. You don't want to get sued.
Oh, yeah. So you'd never seen The Shining, and since we didn't talk about it in the last episode, we kind of made the decision at the last second. Just a heads up to everybody, this is going to be a double episode. We decided to watch Dr. Sleep along with The Shining, so we're going to talk about that as well. But first up is The Shining. I did not prepare very well. I don't have the synopsis. Let me pull that up real quick. This is what I get for thinking I was prepared. And
Yeah, I was gonna text you and be like, "Did you do your research?"
I mean, I'm I mean, you know, I've watched like there's one documentary I'm gonna talk about a few times that I've seen like 3 or 4 times already, so I kind of knew a bunch of stuff, and I kind of rewatched most of it again just to be, you know, have it really fresh in my mind and kind of have like a little bit of an outline of what I wanted to talk about. One of which is the talks about the sweater that you wanted to discuss.
Yay.
Where's the freaking storyline? Okay. This says, so The Shining, 1980, directed by Stanley Kubrick. It's a Stephen King novel. It's got Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall in it. Scatman Crothers. A family heads to an isolated hotel for the winter where a sinister presence influences the father into violence while his psychic son sees horrific forebodings from both past and future. That feel appropriate to you? Sound about right?
Yes.
All right.
It was a gist, yeah.
So I've got some, you know, look, I've got some fun trivia type things to talk about. I've got some subtext things. I've got conspiracy theories. And then I've got something I want to talk about with it that is a subtext that is not talked about, that not everybody either picks up on or agrees with. And it will change how you feel about the film. But first question is, did you like The Shining?
So, I absolutely 100% love this movie. It is now in like my top 5 horror movies. Like, not even horror movies, all movies. My top 5. I loved it so much. It's fighting for number 3 right now.
Ooh.
But I could not get enough of it. Everybody I spoke to in my family and my friends, I was like, have you seen it? Have you seen it? Oh my God, it's so good. You got to watch it. It was so good. I couldn't stop talking about it.
It's funny because I expected that reaction maybe out of Dr. Sleep from you, but not The Shining. So I'm a little surprised.
No. Really?
I'm a little surprised.
I
love it. I love that you're super into it.
Yeah, I liked them both. Don't get me wrong. I did like them both, but I felt like the rawness of the first one, it touched on so many things for me that I love in a horror movie, like a suspense thriller, anything like that. Like, it touched every single one of my pinpoints.
Yeah.
But like, we were getting to like the more supernatural side of like horror movies. Then Doctor Strange would have been Doctor Strange.
Sleep.
Dr. Sleep would have been up there, but for like horror thriller, just like the psychological thriller of it, I ate it up. I loved it.
I'm super excited to hear that. Well, why don't you tell me about some of the things that stuck out to you? I'll pepper some information in, and then we'll get into the heavy stuff.
Okay. The first thing I noticed was the opening music. The opening music. Yeah, I loved it. I don't know why. I felt like it was just prepping you for just the crazy amount of stuff that was going to happen, and I loved it so much. Like, I was jamming out.
Jamming out? Okay.
Yeah, I was like, oh God, I'm ready to like get into this thriller, man.
All right, I want to see your TikTok dance to it.
I doubt one can. I'm not even going to say I doubt that because they make up dances to everything now. But
sure.
Just the first thing I noticed was or that I liked was Tony the Finger.
Tony.
Tony. I loved him so much. Like, I don't know what it was. It was just like, that's so creepy, and the voice that Danny used.
Yeah.
To do it was just even creepier. So I loved that.
So I like that you bring up Tony. This isn't really in my notes, but I'll just kind of talk about it anyway since you brought it up. So, the book and the movie are massively different, to the point that Stephen King hated this movie when it came out. Kubrick basically was like, there's a skeleton here that I really like, but I'm throwing everything that is like uniquely Stephen King. He basically chucked it out the window. And he kind of like did it in a way that sort of like was like a real fuck you to Stephen King. Like for example, the car that they drive is like this yellow Beetle. In the book, he's really specific about it. It's a red Volkswagen Beetle. And when Dick is driving in the snow to get to the hotel late in the film, he comes across a car crash. It's like a semi truck that has crushed another car, and it's crushed a red Volkswagen Beetle. And just like Stanley Kubrick just being like, yeah, this thing that you built, I'm going to destroy it.
Oh, well, he did a good job of destroying it.
Yeah.
But
so Tony, little interesting factoid from the book. Danny's middle name is Anthony, and Tony is Danny from the future communicating back to the past to his younger self. That's in the book. That's not in the movie. I just want to specify that doesn't have any bearing on this storyline. Just an interesting thing that's different about the book.
But it makes sense. It would make sense for either.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's just his nickname. That's pretty cool. I like that. Another thing that I noticed was just like this sense of isolation warning in the interview. I liked that he was like, can you do this? And he was like, yeah, you know, whatever, I got this. Just his entire demeanor during the interview was weird to me. When he came back and he was like, he felt like he had been there before, and just like everything was really like foreshadowing, like him having been there and him having just felt a sense of familiarity like with the place. Like he was very comfortable getting there, walking in the hotel, you know, just his body language with it all to me.
Even when he's, and I'm going to touch on this in a little bit, but like when he's gotten the job and the family goes up there and it's like move out day for the employees and it's move in day for them, and he's sitting in the lobby just like reading a magazine, and even that is so like casual, I'm in like my living room kind of a vibe to it. I think it speaks to kind of what you're talking about, how comfortable he is.
Yeah, because when you go on a job interview, you're like spine straight, setting up, yes sir, no ma'am, you know, you're getting to the blunt of it. Yes sir, I can do this job, no problem. He was very confident to a point of arrogance with just being there.
That's a good observation, Beat. I love it.
Thank you. I told you I really like this movie. Paying attention to everything. And the way that he took the tragedy with the two girls, it was like a blink of an eye for him. When he was like, this is what happened, you know, we just want to warn you.
Oh yeah.
And he was like, okay, yeah, no, I got it. 5 months alone, no problem.
Not a factor. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and that's weird to me. Like, why are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Like, that's scary to think, you know, cabin fever or whatever, that thing could happen for someone being alone. And you have your family coming with you. As a father and as a protector for your family, like, that's something you should think about. Yeah. You know, he just immediately was like, yeah, no, I got it.
Yeah.
And then you already said something about Tony, or we said something about Tony showing him things from the past and the future.
Sure.
So that was one thing I noticed I liked about him. Like, it was kind of like him trying to protect him. So, like, now that you say that it's supposed to be Danny in the book, but not in the movie.
Yeah, it's like a warning. Yeah, in the movie, it's not in the movie. It's not him from the future, but there's some type of warning signal that Tony sort of represents. You know, that first vision is the elevator blood. You know, when they're still at home, the dad's interviewing and he gets that first vision.
Yeah. And then I already touched base on the deja vu, like him being there before. Uh, oh, I loved the maze.
The
The
maze.
maze was so cool, and I love how they brought it back. I love it. I love it. But we're not on that movie yet.
So the maze. So the maze is also not in the book. There's animal topiary that comes to life in the book, but the crux there, the climax happens in the hotel, not in a maze. There is no maze. And in the book, the dad chases them with a croquet mallet and not an axe.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I love this director's vision, though.
Yeah.
Like,
mean,
I love how he changed it, because I felt like the the maze or whatever, when he's looking down on it and he sees his family there, whether or not he actually sees his family there,
Yeah.
or he's just going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. He's looking there, and like it just looks crazy seeing them small.
Yeah.
And, we were touching base on it while we were watching it, how it could be like a labyrinth, like your mind,
Yeah.
working through things and things like that. But it was actually really beautiful. Like, the walls were so huge.
Yes. Yeah, so a lot of that, so obviously that's like a big model. And then they built the center of the maze in this parking lot, I think next to a school. And then they went up on top of the roof of the school and shot the center of just Danny and the mom walking. And then they used that as a plate in the middle of the model, basically. So they just like superimposed that in the middle. And that's how they did that. That shot where he's looking down on them and they're actually walking through the maze.
I did really enjoy the sound of the bike going on and off the carpets as he was riding around.
Yeah.
I felt like in a theater, or watching that in the dark and on loud, that would really like be suspenseful. Like, just a loud banging of him hitting the floor and then going back to the carpet and then hitting the floor, because you don't like, that's a suspenseful moment for him, is he's rounding those corners so fast, you don't know what's going to be there. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. And not to get too ahead of ourselves, but that sound, that actual recording comes back in Dr. Sleep in kind of a cool way, which I really like. But we'll cover that in a little bit. But yeah, I think like people tend to really pick up on that sound, and really it definitely grabs people. I think it's a very common favorite element to the film. I love it.
Yeah. Another part I noticed was when Jack started getting really snippy with his wife.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everything she did was very irritating to him.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like that was before the hotel. Hotel. I don't even think that is a part, and I think it's amplified, of course, but I do think that Jack in his everyday life was like that, almost like your typical overbearing father that drinks, and
Yeah.
it's just very manly. Like, he's like, I'm provide, it's my job, it's you don't have to worry about anything, I take care of everything,
A contract is important.
Yeah, like that kind of person. But I did notice that he got even more snippier, like, throughout as it kept going.
Yeah. So Jack Nicholson considers himself a writer. I don't know how much he's written, but he considered himself a writer, at least. So he kind of identified with that, and he actually improvised some lines between some of their like frustrated moments. And I think there's a scene where where it's sort of like, if I'm in here, assume I'm writing, like, take care when I'm in this room. Don't bother me when I'm in this room. If you hear the typewriter, assume I'm doing it. If you don't hear the typewriter, assume I'm doing it. Like, and that some of that is ad-libbed from Jack Nicholson, from actual real experiences he's had arguing with his girlfriend.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I loved that part, though. Like, when he's yelling at her.
I love when he's being abusive.
I love when he's angry. It's so hot. No.
Oh my god.
But no, I did like it, though, because I liked how how dark it was getting,
Well, and his
and her
performance is
being
good.
so scared. Yeah, his oh my god, his
And hers is too as well. I mean, not to overlook Shelley Duvall. She went through hell and back to make this movie.
um.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the part where the little girls are standing in the hallway and they're like, "Come play with us," and they repeated forever, 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 and then Jack repeated the same thing.
Yeah.
I loved that part. I was like, "Ooh, is he gonna say it again? Ooh, say it one more time. You're gonna match him." I was like, "Please," and he did, and I was like, "Yes!"
Yeah.
It was like full circle. I loved it so much. It was like him becoming, the hotel, pretty much.
Yeah, allowing the hotel to like work through him.
Yeah. Another part that I really, 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 really loved was when he's sitting at the hotel bar.
Yeah.
And he deadpans to the camera and starts talking straight into it.
Yeah. So that happens a couple times in the film.
Yeah, particularly I loved that part so much.
Yeah.
And the part where he's leaning against the door and the camera angle is all weird, where it's like down on the floor looking up at him, while he's like leaning on the storage door after
he's pleading with her to let him out.
Yeah.
That's a good shot. It's repeated again, not to get ahead of ourselves, but it's repeated in Dr. Sleep as well.
Mm-hmm. The worst scene that I hated so much was the granny scene.
Oh, you hated that scene.
Literally made me want to gag.
What? She was such a beautiful woman.
Was she? No, I was kidding. No, it was really cool. It was really cool. I feel like that was a kind of a play on his past. Like maybe when he was there in 1921.
Sure.
Maybe that's something that happened.
Maybe.
You know?
Oh man, I've got stuff to like tell you about this, and I don't know how you're gonna feel. I'm nervous. I'm nervous about telling you some stuff about it.
Oh my goodness. One part that I got really scared was when the mom was running through the hotel and she could see all of the people that died there. Like all of the people that were touched by the hotel and they lived there. I thought she was dead. I thought that was saying she died at some point and now she's a part of this, and it was only Danny. It scared me so much. I was like, if she died, and that's why she can see everybody. But I was like, no, it's just because it's getting closer. It's getting stronger. They've been there a long time. Calm down. She's not dead yet.
Yeah.
Oh, I love how Danny covered his tracks in the maze.
Yeah.
Such a smart boy.
Such a smart boy. Well, and
it so much.
I keep wanting to say stuff regarding what you're saying, but it goes to a larger thing I'm going to discuss. But yeah, the covering of the tracks is quite astute.
His Jack's facial expressions throughout the entire film, really, anything that he was saying or doing, his facial and body language, I found a 10 out of 10.
Yeah,
10 out of freaking 10. Like I felt like he embodied this role. Like he was like, this was literally made for me. This is about my life.
Well, it's amazing.
This is now an autobiography.
It's amazing too that like there's the scene that really sticks out to me with his body language is when after he's gone to the bar and Wendy finds him and is like, there's somebody else in the hotel, and he's drunk, but he actually hasn't drank anything. Like the glass is empty. There's nobody there, but he's drunk. And I don't know. He's just like, have you lost your fucking mind? And she's like, no, there's somebody here. Man, I just love his performance. It's so nuanced.
The last thing I want to talk about is Mama Bear. Mama Bear and the swinging of that bat and the fact that she threw her knife down pissed me off. When she came out, when she's like backing up on the steps and she just keeps swinging and swinging and swinging the bat, she's like overexerting herself and using too much energy. It's not like, it doesn't help in a situation like that. And I know like when you're in a situation like that, your brain is differently and that's how it needed to be played out. But the fight or flight instinct in me was like, stop swinging back, save your energy. You knock him in the head one good time. You can literally break a forearm with the bad swing. Like, calm down.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it was driving me insane. And then when she reaches Danny outside, she doesn't know anything like where Jack is, and she throws her knife down to get into the car.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he could have came out that maze as soon as Danny did, and she just threw her knife down. No defense. But I did like her radio etiquette.
Her radio etiquette.
Very
Over. Over and out. So you talked a little bit about the baseball bat swinging. I'm gonna jump into it here. So Kubrick shot the movie in chronological order, which pushed the shooting schedule back over and over and over again. Multiple movies actually were supposed to shoot at the same sound stages, and at the studio they were shooting at in England, they occupied every single sound stage because they had to have everything ready, all the different rooms ready and pre-lit in order to go. So like some of this was shot, like exteriors were shot in, I want to say Washington State, and Oregon. I think Mount Hood was one of the areas. And then interiors, those rooms are all rooms from various hotels. Like I think the red bathrooms, like from some hotel in Arizona, and I think the lodge with the stained glass window is the hotel that the exterior is based on, I believe. And that's either in Colorado or Washington or something, I think. I'm pretty sure it's Colorado. And because he chose to shoot it the way he did, it actually pushed the film back, and it took them about 500 days to shoot this film, which is absolutely insane for a movie. And nobody but a director like Stanley Kubrick would get away with that. He was like such an A-list, like genius director that the studio, I think, was willing to just do whatever they had to do to get what they wanted out of him. Part of it issue also is that he is notorious for doing a lot of takes. So, Clint Eastwood's really famous for being like a one-take guy, kind of like Ed Wood. And normally you do as many takes as you need to get it right. But he would do like hundreds of takes. The scene that you're talking about where she's walking backwards at the stairs taking a swing at Jack, 127 takes. It broke a world record at the time. 127.
Was she exhausted?
She was. And so when I was saying she went to hell and back to make this movie, let me just say this now, fuck Stanley Kubrick. Like, genius director, but like he did things like he walked up to her and was like, "Hey, do you trust me?" And she'd be like, "Yeah." And he would just wheel back and slap her, and she would be stunned, and he would just go, "Roll camera." Like he told the cast and crew to isolate her and not talk to her. They said, like, if she requests something, just ignore her completely. So she spent, 500 days making this movie with people ignoring her and feeling completely alone. And, like, he would praise Jack Nicholson when he would finish a scene, but he would be a really, really harsh critic to her and make her feel really bad about the work that she had done, specifically to demoralize her and make her small. Not in a, I want to make this actress small, but I want her as a character to be small. And that was his method for doing this. And she started losing her hair over this film. She became like physically ill because of this movie. She continues to have psychological trauma over the film. It was,
what a fucking asshole.
Yeah, really, really, really difficult for her. It was, and when the movie came out, it was not super well received in the first place, but what credit there was given all to Stanley Kubrick. Like, her and Jack Nicholson didn't get any credit for the work they did in this film. It was all about the director.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is like I said, fuck Stanley Kubrick. Like, that's just not the way you like. There was Scatman Crothers had done like, I don't know, like 1 or 2 other films, and Jack Nicholson recommended him for this because they worked on Cuckoo's Nest together, and he, like, after 40 takes, one day he just started crying and was like, "What do you want from me, Stanley? Like, I don't understand what it is you want." And then after this movie, he went and worked on a Clint Eastwood movie, and they did like a take, and they were like, "Okay, let's move on." And he was like, "Just
you sure?"
He was like, he was so thankful that he didn't have to go through the hell that he went through doing this film. So yeah, I mean, Stanley Kubrick was kind of a nutcase about it. To the having to do multiple takes thing, you know, when Jack Nicholson uses the axe to break the bathroom door, they spent 3 days just having him chop down doors, just to get it right the way he wanted it. He chopped down 60 doors. How crazy is that?
It's freaking nuts.
Yeah. So one of the big like claims to fame for this film is it's one of the first films to use the Steadicam. There were like 3 movies that had used it. Rocky had already shot and done that film and been released. And there was like 3 Steadicams in the world at the time. And for those that don't know what a Steadicam is, it's basically a big harness that's got a fluid arm that comes off of the harness, like it's mounted to like your chest. And the camera sits on that arm, and it allows you to move up and down and sideways and turn in a really, really fluid manner. So it allows you to, like, the camera operator to walk, but still have a fluid movement. It doesn't, like, bounce up and down with the walks. And so there were only a few of these at the time. The story that I was told, which I don't think is necessarily true, but I'll tell you the story I was told, was that Kubrick wanted to make this movie, but didn't really want to do, like, a studio film. And the studio, like, you know, desperately wanted him, and he basically was like, no. And they like, we'll drive a dump truck full of money to your house. And he's like, no. And they're like, well, what would it take? And he's like, buy me a Steadicam. And they're like, deal. And thinking that he was going to kind of, you know, either call their bluff or he's going to get everything he wanted. It turns out he got everything he wanted. So they got him the Steadicam. And they got him the Garrett Brown, who invented the Steadicam. They hired him to operate it for him. And he made them like guarantee that the shoot would only be 6 months. And of course, we know it went over 6 months because he had to shoot Rocky 2. And because it went over, every Sunday he would get on a Concorde jet and fly to Philadelphia and work a week on Rocky 2, fly back on Sunday, work a week on The Shining, fly back on Sunday, work a week, back and forth until Rocky 2 was done. All because Stanley Kubrick's like crazy. So
did Rocky 2 get completed before The Shining even did?
Yeah, Rocky 2 came out in 1979. This came out in 1980.
So they were able to shoot an entire movie within this span, with him going back and forth, of them completing the entire Shining.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That is just bonkers.
Yeah, it is. It is bonkers. So that's a little bit of like background on sort of the making and kind of what people went through. There's a couple of things that I think are kind of interesting. You know, we talked about in the Psycho thing about the uncanny and duality and like how mirrors can represent like an unseen, you know, part of yourself. Every time Jack talks to a ghost and you see the ghost, there's always a mirror present, whether it's behind the bar or on a wall or whatever. The only time that he talks to a ghost and there's not a mirror is when he's in the pantry and you don't actually ever see the ghost. They don't like cut to the ghost talking to him. And then the kind of going back to that ghost in the mirror thing, the first bar scene, this is like a little touch that I love. He tells the ghost he's like, I've got 2 20s and a 10. And he opens his wallet, and his wallet's actually empty. And then he says that he'd sell his soul for a drink. Later in the film, when the bar's like completely full and stuff, he opens up his wallet, and his wallet is full of money. I don't know. I get goosebumps when I think about it, because I think it's such a small, nice touch that, you know, he essentially sold his soul for the drink. So
I didn't even notice.
Yeah. There's lots of little things in this film. I mean, Stanley, that's the other thing about this, is like knowing that he spent 500 days on this film. Nothing is ever done on accident. If a piece of furniture is in one shot and then it cuts away and cuts back, and that piece of furniture is gone, like a chair is gone, it happens in the film. It's not by accident. It's not a continuity error. It's not left in the film as a mistake. It's left in the film for a reason. So everything that's done is done for a reason. But I'm going to talk about some theories, because Stanley Kubrick is not alive. We only know so much from books and documentaries and things. And so some stuff has to be sort of like, you know, this is what I think or whatever. I'm going to reference two things that I'm going to kind of credit them right now. One is this documentary that I really love, which is completely about conspiracy theories about Room 237, or sorry, The Shining. It's called Room 237. It's like an hour and 45-minute documentary. It's really, really interesting. Some of the stuff is completely absurd and doesn't make any sense, and we'll cover at least one of those things. And then the big one that I want to talk about, which is the sort of the area I sort of subscribe to. There's this guy I've read, Robert Eger. I don't know if it's Eger or Ager. He does lots of film analysis and sort of science behind films and stuff. And so I'm going to reference some of the things that he's talked about as well in some of these things. So just kind of wanted to give some credit at the top here. So a few things. I don't know if you remember me pointing out the baking soda can in the pantry, the Calumet. So they make a point in those scenes when they're walking through the hotel to tell us that there's a Native American influence to like the glass and the murals and stuff in there. And then there's a lot of photographs and paintings all throughout the hotel of Native American artwork and Native American people. And then in the pantry, they show the Calumet baking powder, and Calumet, the word means peace pipe. And the when you first see it, it's right over Dick Halloran's shoulder as he's talking to Wendy, but he looks at and speaks to Danny with The Shining for the first time. And it's the first time that they basically meet and share this like voice path. And so this idea that you see Calumet facing straight at you, where you can clearly read the words, this peace pipe, he's like extended this thing to Danny. And then Calumet baking powder shows up again later when Jack is locked in the pantry, but all of the cans are turned at different angles and you can't read it clearly. And it's when he's making a deal with Grady about getting out of the pantry. So he's like trying to get out, and Grady's like, I'll let you out if you do this thing for me, basically. So
it was showing itself for like the peaceful people, but for Jack, who's literally going crazy, it was turned to the side.
It's an actual peaceful partnership versus a violent partnership, I think, is sort of the difference between the two. And I think you pointed it out maybe in the film when he's talking to the bartender and he says, white man's burden, and sort of kind of like draws back to this idea that like, you know, this was white men throughout the ages have traveled and conquered other lands because that's what they're supposed to do. And they're doing this glorious thing to spread out and and conquer the world, right? And that's what they did to the Native Americans. Is they came here and they were, you know, it's I was going to say they were savage, but I felt like that was like kind of a weird, I don't want to be confused about who I'm talking about, because I'm certainly not calling Native Americans savage. The colonists were underhanded and deceitful with the Native Americans, and killed and slaughtered and stole from them. And under the guise of like, we have this responsibility to like expand. And I think that's sort of the reference to the white man's burden. So, so I think that's what that's all about. The next thing I want to talk about is the hotel layout. So when you see the exterior of the hotel, it actually changes from different shots. So you may have seen some shots outside where there's like a big kind of pointed front to the entryway, like a big pointed roof at the front. And there's a really cool shot early in the film when the family has arrived and the staff is like cleaning everything up, and there's like bags and stuff, you know, piled up by the door. And there's this really long cross dissolve where you see the front of the hotel, and it dissolves into a shot inside the lobby. And they make a point of, again, nothing is ever a mistake. The point dissolves into the shape of a ladder frame, like it matches like dead on. And later that point is completely gone. Like the hotel loses length on the outside. Whenever you see that, like when they go out to the maze, whenever you see it snowing, the entrance to the hotel is a different entrance after that point. And it sort of it explains that this building is sort of like an impossible building that doesn't make any sense. And it's the building itself, I think in some ways, is a maze, kind of like outside. So
freaking cool.
Yeah, so the office. So Jack goes to meet the guy in the office and has the interview, and there's a window right behind his desk, and you can see trees and sunlight coming in and stuff. If you look at the hallway that he walks down to get to the office, the hallway continues, and then he turns to the left and then to the right and to the right again. And where that window is should be the hallway. But it's actually trees and sunlight. Another example of like this absolutely is, yeah, this place does not make any sense. And then the red bathroom is behind the bar, right? And when they go into the red bathroom, they go in the door, they turn right, and they turn right again, and then you can see all the urinals. But that would place them, all of the urinals and things, in the gold room at the bar. So again, like a lot of this building, and I'm not, you know, depending on what theories you subscribe to, either those rooms are real and the building is an impossible haunted building, or the rooms don't actually exist and they're just fabrications inside his brain, so he can have a place to have a conversation with whatever demons are inside of him.
Ooh.
Yeah. Ooh. So the big wheel stuff, when Danny's writing, so let's talk about that. The first time he does it, he's on the ground floor. He starts in the service hall, and then he comes left into the lounge area, which is where Jack writes, and the big staircase is. And then he turns, at the end of that, he turns left again, down another hall, and then left back into the service hall. And that's the main area where his father works. The next time he does it, he's in the hex hall with the cool hex carpet. And that's one floor up. And he does a different loop, and it's like, it's a different shape. It's not the same big square shape. It's really strange. He basically takes like a left and then a right and then a right and then goes straight forward, and you can see that he's actually above where his father is working. So the pattern, which is very maze-like, is above his father. The third time he's also upstairs. Well, actually, he starts in the service hall, and then he turns right out of the service hall, and then he's upstairs in the flower hall, which is where he sees the
little ladies,
the sisters, yeah, and it's where they live, right? It's where their apartment is. And this would be above the service hallway. And at the same time that he's up there, his mother is directly below him, using the radio. So I don't know, just some kind of an interesting thing where like the movements don't really totally make sense. I also think it's really interesting that when he's on like a maze pattern, he's above his father, and when he's with flower pattern, he's like above his mother. I don't know. Just a thing I noticed that I think is kind of cool. So the maze. So you made a point of talking about the skiing, right? They don't ski up there because it gets too much snow.
Yeah.
And do you remember what I pointed out when Danny was in the game room and he was throwing darts?
No.
So there's
yeah.
Okay.
The poster
of a ski resort.
The ski.
Yeah, Monarch Pass. If there's no skiing up there, why is there a poster advertising skiing? Right? Doesn't make sense, right? So like, but again, that poster has to be there for a reason. They wouldn't like build a set and put that set dressing there, especially Stanley Kubrick wouldn't do that, right? On the other side of the door frame, so that's on the left side of the door frame. On the other side of the door frame is a poster of a cowboy on a bucking bronco. And if you look at those, you see that the silhouette of the skier, the way, his legs are bent, kind of like animal haunches. So it looks a little like, like a centaur or a minotaur. And then if you look at the cowboy, it's like a guy, and it's kind of hard to see the whole thing really clearly, but it basically looks like a human top and an animal bottom, right? Like again, going to the centaur minotaur thing. So like half man, half horse, or half man, half bull kind of a thing. And while this is happening, Jack and Wendy are being shown around the hotel, and they're asking about people that sorry, one second. They ask about is there royalty that stayed here, or stars? Is there any stars or any royalty? And he's like, oh yeah, the best people, the best of the best. While they're asking about royalty, there's a picture on the wall in that moment of a Native American in a buffalo headdress on the wall. And they're asking about stars. The Minotaur's name is Asterius, which means starry. So we're seeing images with Danny of sort of like these kind of half man, half beast things in the background. They're asking about it, and you're seeing a guy with horns on the wall and this whole thing about stars. I think Jack represents the Minotaur. He's watching them through the maze. And where does he end up at the end of the film?
The maze.
The maze, just like the Minotaur. I was a long way of getting there. I had Desi in here trying to get the dog out at the same time, so I was getting distracted. So, I don't know. I think that's kind of a cool, maybe, possibility with the maze. But what you want to know is about the rocket sweater.
Hell yeah.
So, I'm going to preface this with, I don't believe this. I don't agree with it. I think it's dumb. But I'm going to say it anyways. So, There are people that believe that the moon landing was faked. You're aware of this, right?
Yeah.
All right, I don't know where you stand on the moon landing, but some people believe that the movie, the entirety of The Shining, is Stanley Kubrick's confession that he helped them fake the moon landing, and he helped them like create and shoot the footage for it, and that like the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey was sort of like a lot of prep to figure out how to shoot space stuff. Then they did this moon landing fake, and then he made this because he couldn't deal with keeping this secret. And it's sort of like a confession about what it's like to make a deal with the government. Like he makes this deal and he talks about how important contracts are and how you can't break a contract. And when he's meeting the guy, there's a little flag on the desk, what it means to lie to your wife, and then what it means for your wife to find out, and what are the consequences for other people finding out. Like he has to kill somebody because they find out. Anyways, when Danny is playing, he's wearing that sweater and he's playing on the hex carpet, and he's playing with these trucks. When he stands up real slowly and real straight, so it looks like the rocket is taking off near the cars, and then he goes towards the room 237. Some people say that 237 represents the stage number of the sound stage where they faked the moon landing. There's no corroboration of this, but people believe this. Also, supposedly the moon is 237,000 miles from the Earth. I checked today, doing my due diligence. It's the average. On average, the Earth is 238,855 miles from the Earth, or from the moon. So, it's close. Maybe, I don't know. There's
the amount of stretching.
Yeah, there's Tang in the pantry, which Tang was like a astronaut drink. The key fob that's sticking out of the door says room number 237. It's room NO. The letters that are capitalized are ROOMN, and then O is small, and then 237. And so some people are like, well, that means moon room. And I'm just like, even if you said moon, like you still have a rogue R in here and a little O. And anyways, so some people believe that this is him saying that he helped fake the moon landing, and maybe he did, but I don't think this movie is him confessing that he faked it. But that's part of the sweater thing I wanted to point out to you, since you were like, I love his sweater.
Thank you so much for that information.
Yeah, now you're armed with that.
No, that seems like too far of a stretch.
Yeah. All right, so before I'm going to get into the heavy stuff real quick, and then we'll wrap up The Shining. So there is a moment at the end. You were talking about Wendy sort of like starting to see stuff in the hotel, like the bodies and whatever. Yeah. And there is a moment that she turns and looks down the hall, and she sees through a doorway. There is a man laying on a bed and someone dressed in a bear costume, doing what looks like fellatio on the guy. and they both look up, and the guy sits up and looks out the door. In the book, there is the closest thing to this is a subplot about the old owner of the hotel, Grady, who had a homosexual affair with somebody who was dressed as a dog. And that's the closest this gets to it. And they obviously don't deal with that subplot in this. So then the question is sort of like, why is this in the film if this is not a subplot? And this is a whole thing. So, I think the first time we see a bear show up is near the beginning of the film. Danny's had a break. He's had a vision, and so they call a psychiatrist to come and talk to him. And he's
Okay.
yeah.
I have a tiny minor emergency.
Oh no,
Can you come help me?
I have an emergency, of course, in the podcast. Okay, Beat, vamp.
Vamp? What do you mean, vamp? I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't think that the Apollo theory is correct. I also want to see where this is going with this theory because it looks pretty cool. Sounds pretty cool. I wonder what the theory could be.
I'm back. Did you vamp while I was
Okay.
gone? Did you sing?
I don't know what vamp meant. I just started rambling.
Well, that's good. That's good. I'm sure you kept
I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. So the bear. So Danny's laying on his bed, and behind his head is a bear. And a lot of people have dissected this film. One of the things they did with this bear pillow is they cut the eyes to make it look a little bit different, and almost like it's like you're looking from below it, which is an image that you see of Danny, like when he has his horrific visions. He has the like, and it's actually on the poster as well. And in the series as a whole, like once you look at Dr. Sleep as well, you know that the eyes are kind of an important feature. Over Danny's bed in the Overlook, there's a framed picture of bears. One is standing, one is sitting, and it actually mirrors another picture that is in the parents' bedroom at the Overlook. And it's actually of two children. They're actually naked. One is standing and one is sitting. What I want to point out before I get too, into this, because you're about to be like, I want to point out who sees the bear man, and it's Wendy. And I believe that the reason Wendy sees them, we can look at this whole thing at face value and say everything in this happened, it's ghosts, whatever. But what if it's not ghosts? What if it's psychological conditions and things that we present to ourselves that either we have to figure out or that, explain something, give us a meaning behind something. And I think for Wendy, when she sees this in the hotel, she's being confronted with a horror that she's been ignoring or not admitting to herself this whole time. When Jack is waiting to be handed the keys on move-in day, he's sitting in the lobby reading this magazine. It's a Playgirl magazine, which is super freaking weird, right? For in the middle of a hotel.
Yeah.
It's a real issue. And it's got, like every magazine's got a bunch of articles on the cover. And one of the issues, or one of the articles, is incest. Why parents sleep with their children. So the shot of the bear man is obscured through a door frame. He's like leaning over the bed. It mirrors a shot from early in the film when Danny is at the sink brushing his teeth when he has his first vision. So he's brushing his teeth, and when we see him, he's got this like frothy toothpaste all over his face and his mouth. I think that's obviously symbolic of something. And then in the shot before the vision, as the camera's moving, we see his door in the frame, his bedroom door, and there's a dwarf. There's like all these stickers, like Minnie Mouse and Snoopy and Woodstock, and there's Dopey the dwarf, who's kind of viewed as this like happy and innocent character. After he has that vision and the psychiatrist is talking to him, you can see the door in the background, and all of the stickers are there except for Dopey. And I think that when Danny sees himself in the mirror, he's triggered by something, and I think after that innocent, happy thing is gone in him. So I think rather than seeing a ghost in room 237, what if it's just in Danny's head? What if it's a nightmare or a daydream or whatever, and it's him trying to cope with something that his father has done to him. So prior to him going to room 237, he goes in the room and Jack's there sitting on the bed, and he reaches out to beckon his son over to him, and Danny goes over and sits on his dad's lap, and the music is like super freaking weird and super creepy, and Jack's like, I'd never do anything to hurt you, never, you know that, right? After that, room 237 happens, and we see Danny hurt. After he's gone into room 237, he has bruises all over his neck, and he's sucking his thumb. Now, when this is all happening, Jack is like passed out, asleep or whatever, supposedly. She's down in the boiler room, and there's like, I don't know if you noticed, there's like naked women, pictures of like pinups on the walls. But among the porn pictures is a safety poster, and the safety poster says choking. And in the O of choking is the face of a figure, and it's really difficult to tell. There's no like high-res scans of it, but it looks a little bit like the bear man in the O. There's definitely a face in the O. So when in room 237, when she's downstairs doing that and Jack's supposedly asleep, I think Danny's vision ends before he sees himself in the mirror, right? He approaches the mirror, and then we don't see anything else happen. When Jack gets up after Wendy's confronted him and accused him of hurting Danny, he gets mad and heads to the gold room, and he's like muttering as he goes down the hall. And there's these mirrors. There's like 3 mirrors on the left, and they're spaced out. And every time he passes one, his whole body like convulses and freaks out. Like he throws his arms out and stuff, or like he gets really mad and does something with his body. And I think, again, kind of going back to like Danny seeing himself in the mirror at the beginning of the film and Danny seeing himself in the mirror in room 237, Jack can't see himself in the mirror. He can't come to terms with what he's doing to Danny. So Jack gets confronted, Wendy comes down and she's like, there's this woman in room 237, blah, 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 blah. So Jack says he'll go and investigate. The room 237, when he goes in, has the same layout as the Torrance apartment. So it's not really that weird in a hotel, except that in this hotel, everything is freaking different in every room, right? Like it wouldn't be so weird if every room was the same. But because things are so weird in this hotel, the fact that it mirrors, like, the bathroom's in the same place, the bed's in the same place, the room is laid out the exact same way, is kind of strange. He goes to the bathroom, and this hand reaches out and pulls back the curtain, and it's really, really similar to when Jack reaches his hand out and asks Danny to come sit on his lap. And so this woman comes out, and she's all naked, and he starts kissing her, and then he finally looks in the mirror, and it's rotting flesh. And it's this, like, sexual fantasy that's gone wrong. And so I think what's going on in this film is that Jack turned to drinking prior to all of the events in this film, because we know that Danny's been abused, right? Like Wendy tells the psychiatrist about this. I think Jack turned to drinking to cope with or ignore his sexual urges towards his son. And when they go to the hotel and the hotel has no booze and the desire comes back, he has nothing to like dissuade him from it. He has nothing to curb that urge. And that leads to him sort of like making that deal with the devil and like reasoning why this is okay. And it ultimately unravels everything. So that's what I think the movie is sort of this. I don't know. I don't even know how to put it into words outside of this.
I'm literally speechless. It makes 100% sense. Like, if you look that deep into it.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I think as it relates to the sequel, which we'll talk about in a minute, I think as it relates to the sequel, I don't think any of that stuff matters. I think this is like subtext, like this is a message the director wanted to leave with the audience, but like you don't have to dig into a movie. You can enjoy a movie on its surface level and have it be one thing and have it have like a subtext underneath it that also means something else, and those two things exist separately. I think that's totally okay, and that's sort of how I view this film, especially in conjunction with Dr. Sleep, because Dr. Sleep I don't think really caters to this, because I don't, like they're making something 40 years later that the director's dead. They don't have somebody to consult about this stuff to like, hey, do we need to continue this thing? What do I need to know about it? I think they had to just take it at face value and continue it from there.
Yeah.
And it's certainly not what the book is about. So.
He made sure of that.
Mm-hmm. So does that change anything? I'm just curious if that changes anything. How do you feel about all of that?
I actually would like to rewatch this movie, and because I feel like I paid attention, but damn, I feel like I didn't pay attention.
There's just like so much that could, and it's one of those things where people have watched this movie over and over and over again. So it's been 40 something years of people being able to watch this movie, and we've talked about it, and with the Psycho podcast, where when you have something that's been out for so long and people have been able to go back and interview and write books and analysis and essays and things, and we've been able to watch it and dissect it, it's much easier to go through and figure out all of these things that could be going on in a film. Whereas the newer stuff, we just don't have the time, haven't had the time to do that. So yeah, I mean, all of these older films are probably going to be more like that for you, where you're going to be like, wow, there's a lot that I didn't realize. Because you're not,
and it's like, to think about it, like at face value is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
At a very psychological value, that's amazing, as well.
It's a whole new thing.
So to watch it either way, to either get the full value of the movie or to watch it at face value, it's amazing either way.
Yeah. So that was The Shining.
It was.
I'm not going to have as much in-depth stuff to talk about, I don't think, with Dr. Sleep. Again, it's newer. I will say, I gotta pull up the, oh boy, pull up the synopsis real quick.
Synopsis?
Yeah. Dr. Sleep. So this is the sequel. It's directed by Mike Flanagan, starring Ewan McGregor, Rebecca Ferguson. Years following the events of The Shining, a now adult Dan Torrance must protect a young girl with similar powers from a cult known as the True Knot, K-N-O-T, who prey on children with powers to remain immortal. So, first of all, did you like this one?
I did like this one. I thought it was really good. I don't think it's going to be in my top, but I do think that the movie was very good.
Yeah. So I'll pull it back up real quick, actually, because I'm going to pull up Mike Flanagan. Mike Flanagan is one of my favorite directors right now. I think he is the voice of horror right now. Like, he's the modern voice of horror. I think he's... so I'll tell you what he's done. So I pull it up here. So on Netflix, you probably have seen like The Haunting of Hill House or The Haunting of Bly Manor or Midnight Mass. He did all of those shows. He has a new show called Midnight Club, and he's doing the adaptation of The Fall of House of Usher. But he did, of course, Dr. Sleep. He did Gerald's Game. He did the Ouija movie. He did the second one, The Origin of Evil, which is the prequel, which is the good one. He did Hush, which I quite enjoyed. He did
Hush.
Yeah. He did Oculus.
Oh my goodness.
And he did Absentia. And then some other stuff, but those are the big ones. Absentia was like the one that kind of put him on the map, I think, and then he did Oculus after that. And the Oculus mirror actually shows up in the Overlook and Doctor Sleep, like real briefly. But yeah, so he did all those movies. He's I think what I love about him, not just like the pedigree of the things he's done, but like how he goes about them, and you're talking about sort of the genius of, we're talking about the genius of Stanley Kubrick. I think this guy might be not quite on that level, but close, and he's, I think, supposed to be a nice guy. Like he cares about his actors and he cares about his crew, and he does like, and he's also like, I think, a film genius. Have you watched the Haunting of Hill House on Netflix?
I have watched The Haunting of Hill House, The Bly Manor, Midnight Mass,
Yeah.
Hush. Anybody who asks me for horror recommendations on Netflix, the first thing out of my mouth is Hush.
Yeah. So that's this guy. So, The Haunting of Hill House and this movie Doctor Sleep are very similar in tone for me, in sort of like what he's sort of trying to get across. But he has, what I love about this guy is he has something to say. He's not just making a horror film or a horror TV show. He's doing this and also telling like a really beautiful, like if you look at the ending of Bly Manor, it's so beautiful. It's so sweet and kind,
yes,
and generous and beautiful, and it's also a horror film or a horror show, So I think to some extent, in a much more sad way, The Haunting of Hill House is also, but it's a little bit more of a downer, I think, than Bly Manor is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just think like, this guy, if this guy does something, I'm immediately willing to give it a shot, because I think he's just so freaking talented. Obviously, they recreated like a ton of sets for this Dr. Sleep film. And that alone is pretty impressive, that somebody was like, yeah, okay, you can recreate this hotel.
Yeah. That's one of like the main parts that I thought was great about Dr. Sleep.
Yeah. Well, okay. So when we talk about some of your things, then I'll go in and maybe I'll try and pepper some things in a little bit more. What's stuck out to you?
One thing I will say that I thought that was amazing was three or I think it was 3 times when Dick, the Crow, and then Danny all said the same things at different parts of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Was so cool to me. They all said the world's a hungry place.
Yeah.
Like everyone said it, and I thought that was real cool. Like that was like such a in tune thing to say, like throughout that entire movie. Like I felt like it related to now. It related to just the world in general throughout history. Like the world's a hungry place,
and they all have.
I love how they all.
And they all have different motivations for saying it, which I think is kind of cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I loved the boxes. In Danny's
yeah.
mind.
Yeah.
I love how his mind was the maze.
Yeah. Well, that comes from, the boxes comes from, I think, Dreamcatcher, the Stephen King story, about locking things up in a box in your mind. I think it's a holdover from that. So.
What movie is Dreamcatcher? Is that the one where the aliens came in the sewer?
The aliens, yeah.
That was one of my favorite movies when I was a kid.
Oh man, that movie's, you should rewatch it now as an adult. It's pretty rough to watch.
Yeah, I know. I tried.
Yeah.
But it was my favorite movie as a kid, and then I tried watching it as like a couple years ago, and I didn't get through it.
Yeah.
But I did love it then because I thought it was really weird.
Yeah.
But that's so cool. I didn't know that was Stephen King.
Yes. Also Stephen King.
One thing that I did say was, "Geez, Danny, what happened, buddy?"
Oh yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, I think that's an interesting, and I'll go into this a little bit more before we wrap up. But Ewan McGregor is a recovering alcoholic, and probably a good, being able to understand and tap into that, I think probably helped him get this role. Because I think they looked at a bunch of different people for it, but he was the guy that Mike Flanagan wanted. But yeah, there's the trauma has done a number on Danny by the time we get to see him.
Very much so.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I did say that I loved Rose the Hat. My opinion changed.
Oh yeah,
very quickly.
Well, Rebecca Ferguson is great. I mean, she plays the character so well.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah.
She was really good.
She's an actress too that does like a lot of little things. So so there's a scene when she goes grocery shopping when Abra like tries to invade her mind and she sees her in like the reflection at the grocery store and she puts stuff in the cart. Rebecca Ferguson was like, she's actually here shopping for her family, right? So, and they don't all just want the same thing. So she had a list of, like, she made a list of what everybody in the family would have wanted, and that's what she put in the cart. She's like, she has a pin, like a hat pin in her hat, and for her, that's like, oh yeah, I use this hat pin to put under children's nails to make the pain worse. Like, that's not something we see in the film, but that's something she knows about her character. And I think that's like, those little things go so far into creating and sort of allowing yourself to sort of become and portray a character.
Mm-hmm.
She's impressive.
But
she became not your favorite?
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I do like how they didn't know Danny existed because he suppressed everything after the hotel. It wasn't. He decided that he wasn't gonna use his shining, and he wasn't gonna shine bright like a diamond.
Yeah.
So
it's like sad and it's an element that makes the movie work, but it's also kind of sad at the same time when you think about it.
Yeah, and I love how it came full circle back to him telling her to shine. Don't dim your own light.
Yeah,
I felt like that was pretty cool. I like Crow.
Yeah, so
fun for me, but I like him.
So the Crow in the book, I think he's been around since like the Civil War. So he's like a tracker from the Civil War. And I don't think he has any like, like Andy the snake, was that her name? Andy the snake, whatever her name is. She can tell people to do stuff, and Rose has powers. They all have different powers, except for him. He doesn't actually have a power in the book. He just
he got brain cells.
Yeah, he just knows how to track, and that's a byproduct of who he was before he joined the True Knot.
Yeah, I did like the Doctor. I thought his backstory was kind of cool. Like, they're like he came from emperors, and he dated back that far.
Yeah,
like imagine living that long.
Oh yeah. The grandpa Flick or whatever his name was.
Yeah. I thought he was pretty cool. I did think that this story was going to go in a completely different direction.
Yeah.
Especially when Grandpa got sick. I thought they were going to come for Danny.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that they were going to try to make him a part of their crew, and he was going to refuse, and then it would be this whole battle thing. And until, the girl and her spoons and floaty things.
Spoons. Yeah, I'm unclear a little bit on why they seem to only go after children, but that's obviously a message in the film that I think Mike Flanagan's trying to talk about. But that's the thing, right? Like Andy's like 14 or 15, and Violet at the beginning is obviously a child, and then the baseball kid, I can't remember his name now, but the kid that plays baseball that they kidnap,
number 19 or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember his name.
Danny?
Yeah, I know. I want to say Danny, but that's obviously the main.
That would be too close.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so they always seem to go after kids in the film. I mean, even that little description I read mentioned that it's children. And I think there's, again, I'll kind of cover it in a minute, but I think that's something that the director wanted to say. I guess they could have made it about going after anybody, but but speaking of the baseball kid, Jacob Tremblay, I was like so surprised to see him because he's done some pretty big films, and he was in like an Academy Award nominated film, and Brie Larson won for that film, Room, and he's so good, and he's great in this, like, and it's such a small, they say there's no small parts,
a short
but
role.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess they did the first take of his death scene, and he was so intense and like real that Rebecca Ferguson couldn't say her lines because she kept stammering. She kept like stumbling over her lines because he was like so realistic. And when the scene was over, he just like jumped up and went to the craft services and grabbed a snack, and like the whole cast was just like in
Are
awe.
you okay, buddy?
Yeah, they're like all apparently like shell shocked and traumatized over his performance just right off the bat.
Yeah, his screams were just like so piercing. Like it, like honestly, the way he was screaming, the way he did it. I'm like, do you know how many takes it took them to do that? Like,
I don't.
15?
I do know that they did variations on it. So
okay.
I don't know how many takes they did.
I say that was pretty good. I liked his acting.
Yeah.
For that. And that's crazy that they thought, like, oh, I can't even say my line. This kid is like, I feel like he's in pain.
Yeah. It's pretty impressive.
I did feel like the girl was super badass.
Oh, Abra?
Abra was amazing.
So in the book, she is actually Danny's niece. So she keeps calling him Uncle Dan. In the book, the premise is that after Jack gets fired from the school, before he takes the job at the Overlook, he's had an affair with, I guess it would be Abra's grandmother. And so Abra's mom is actually Danny's sister. And that makes Abra actually his niece. But I like that the movie, they're not related. I like that there's
I like that.
I like that there's something special about these people, and they don't have to, it's not a lineage thing. It's not like she inherited this thing. She just...
Yeah, and I like that they found each other, you know? It wasn't like they knew each other. It was like, no.
Yeah.
She was so powerful that she literally found him.
Yeah, I agree.
And was like, hey, hi, how's it going?
Yeah.
I do like how everything became full circle in this movie.
Yeah.
With the music going back to the hotel, the music going, in like everything was just full circle. The maze, the music, the acts, the scene where they were in the room where his writing room, Jack's writing room, and he was coming up the stairs with the weapon while she was literally stalking him like Jack did his wife.
Yeah.
Like all of that was crazy, and he had the same limp on the same leg.
Yep.
Like all of that to me, I was like, "This, I'm eating it up."
Yeah.
He literally delivered on a plate, sir.
I love the moment when he looks through the hole in the door into the bathroom that Jack had cut into the hole into the door. I love that moment. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
Well, that when he goes to interview for the orderly job, like he's told the doctor where to find his watch, and then the doctor orders him or interviews him in his office. The layout, everything down to the paint and the little flag on the desk is the same layout as the office that Jack interviews in the Overlook.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, a lot of little like
the attention to detail.
A lot of little details that really kind of like you don't notice them, but they matter. I think a lot of people don't understand that about film, is that there's all these things that you can overlook when you're watching them, but subconsciously they matter, and I think some people just don't quite pick up on that concept. And, you know, these things make the movie just that much better. You don't realize it, but it does.
I do hate that his friend died.
Yeah. You know, it's kind of necessary for the film. I'll kind of cover that in a minute. But yeah, I mean, it's heartbreaking for sure.
He was such a good guy, and I love how he like felt that with Danny. Like he felt a connection to Danny. I was like, I've seen that look. I can just tell you're a good person. I'm gonna help you. You know?
Yeah.
And so he had like a little touch.
Yeah, I think there's like a little like question, like, does Billy have a little bit of a shine as well, right? Like he can just tell about people, and I think there's a question that's not really answered in the film about, because it doesn't matter whether he really does or not, because I think the point, you know, and they say this at some point, was that like everybody's got a little bit. I think Dick says that at the beginning of the film, like some people it's a lot and some people it's just a tiny bit, and that maybe Billy had a little bit too. But yeah, it's a pretty great character. Cliff Curtis, that actor, good guy.
I do love just like the heartfeltness of the movie. There was just some very sad, not sad, but like beautiful parts in it. Even some sad parts. Yeah, I think there were some sad parts.
Yeah, I think it's very beautiful.
That were just like, it was just everything that was happening. Like it felt like it was a little nice.
Yeah.
For a horror movie, you know.
Yeah.
I was expecting doom, but it gave me a couple tears.
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of going back to House on The Haunting of Hill House. You know, like I feel like that's sort of like a study in grief, and like how people, like the different stages of grief, like the kids all represent different stages of grief, and what you do with that grief sort of like dictates your happiness or like your completeness. And this one is more like very similar, but more about trauma and like what you do with your trauma and how that can affect your life and your completeness in that sense. And so I agree with you. I think there's something really beautiful about the way this comes full circle and they wrap it up. Is I don't know, it feels special to me.
And I love that his shine tasted like whiskey to Rose. I thought that was very reminiscent of his father and himself with the alcohol. I think that was pretty cool, like a little connection there.
Yeah.
And then his self-sacrifice. Beautiful.
Yeah. It's beautiful. It is beautiful. You're right. Do you have any others?
Oh, I love how Crow died.
Yeah.
Honestly, hilarious.
Yeah.
I love the fact that Danny took over Abra's body, was like, hey, switch with me real quick, you know? Like, let me just talk my shit. And then he's talking shit to him, and then it's like crazy.
Well, it's just like it's just like a snap of the fingers, it's over, you know?
Yeah. It like, explains why you wouldn't wear a seatbelt. And then he like looks down like, oh shit. And I loved it. Oh my god.
Smart boy.
Better wear your seatbelts, people. Could happen.
Well, I want to point out a few things. So the cat, Azzy, short for Azrael, which is like sort of this like angel of death, right? When the cat jumps up on the desk, Danny's reading a magazine. Guess what magazine he's reading?
What magazine?
He's reading January 1978 Playgirl. The same one his dad is reading in the Overlook. Which is, I think it's just a nod. I don't think it really means anything so much other than the connection to his father, but I don't know, just kind of an interesting.
You never know.
Yeah, I guess you never know. You know, I talked about the sound. We were talking about the sound of the big wheel going from the tile to the wood to the, or not the tile, the carpet to the wood sound in the Overlook. When they go to do the shootout where they trick everybody in the woods. They trick the not people. It's the sound of the van driving over the bridge to get to the woods is they put that sound in. Which I think is kind of
cool.
Yeah, and a neat little clever thing. All right, so before I kind of go over my take, do you have anything else on this? Before I get all heavy, you don't. Okay, feel free to jump in, but so I think I think you're kind of like right on with this as far as like what it sort of means and sort of the beauty of it. Yeah, you're talking about Danny, you know, what happened to you, Danny? Obviously his trauma has like, he allowed his trauma to basically eat him from the inside out. And he has this like reluctance to allow himself to shine the way he's supposed to. And I think the film is so partially sort of about how our ancestors pass things down to us, like whether it's an illness like alcoholism, or if it's trauma of, you know, abuse, or it could be faith or whatever. But he feels alone. And so the trauma and that sort of darkness takes him easier than it would otherwise, because he's alone, or at least he feels like he's alone. And when he finds out that he's not alone, that's what ends up giving him strength, right? So like strength through friendship or compassion or community. And so, you know, in the original, he finds a friend and a mentor in Dick, who's the caretaker, right? And then in this one, he finds a friend and mentor in Billy, who's also a caretaker. He's a maintenance man. And because Billy shows him compassion and shows him that he's not alone, and I want to cry the scene when Danny knocks on his door and he's crying and he says, "I need help." I'm just like, oh, like it's just hits you in the heart, you know. It's so meaningful, and knowing that Ewan McGregor is recovering alcoholic is also means that he understands it at a real core level. But because Billy shows this compassion to him, Danny accepts, he learns to accept his shine, and he helps people, and Danny becomes a caretaker. And there's something so like joyful in that to me, that he works in this convalescent home and helps people. I love his job. Feel comfortable. Yeah. There's also at the same time this dark thing, which is, I think, like a similar, I guess it's like a warning or a similarity to the original film, which is we're seeing children being consumed by the knot. Like, basically, I think the message is that talent and power it gets abused and stripped. It basically strips them of what makes them special. And you see this with like kids who are great athletes or good singers or talented actors. Like, you see this all the time in Hollywood, where you have, you know, Justin Bieber or Lindsay Lohan or what, you know, some child, Michael Jackson, who have like everything that's special just like poked and prodded out of them, until that's their entire existence. That's all they are. They aren't anything but that, and it kills them a lot of the time. I don't know. I think there's a kind of an interesting conversation, I guess, sort of about that in this. But I think Danny's existence, his whole existence, is predicated on retreating to survive. And the knot is like on the flip side of that, right? They're predicated on emerging and hunting to survive. So Danny rejects his calling, and it drives him further into his madness. And it not makes him drink, but it drives him further into drinking. And he ends up kind of like his father in that way. And the knot, obviously, they go out and seek ways to corrupt young people, or take everything they can just by hurting them. So I think Danny is this like great example of how we hurt ourselves by being afraid of the light, and Rose the Hat represents how we hurt other people when we're afraid of the dark. That makes sense.
That was freaking poetic, man.
So I think, you know, you kind of touched on this, but ultimately Danny unlocks his demons and confronts the darkness that's been haunting him, and he does it step by step. the drink and his father, and then Rose, and then all of the monsters of the Overlook, and lets them out. And I think this is like really beautiful example of bravery that is more than most people are willing to endure. Most people aren't willing to like look within themselves and sort of like let that all out to deal with it and confront it. And Danny passes on these lessons to Abra, and the biggest one is that she's not alone. And she then takes that lesson and passes it on to her mother. So instead of a cycle of trauma, they pass on a cycle of healing. And I think that's what makes this, in conjunction with The Shining, so wonderful and so beautiful, and makes this film really special, is because it's taking the way the first one ends and sort of repairs it and makes it okay. And there's a real world message in this, right? So, you know, they say, like, I think we're all supposed to shine. We can take care of each other. We can be a light or a beacon of support. It's maybe like the best thing we can do in the world is to like support each other. And what we have to acknowledge is that there are those who want to take that light from us. And by being aware, we can gain resolve, and we can be like Danny, and we can all shine. And that excites me about film. When a director comes out and he says that, like, you have the capacity to be great, even if it's being inspired by something not real. And I think that perhaps we like take a page from the people in Dan's AA group, right? We hope to be granted the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I think that's Dr. Sleep. I think that's the message.
Beautiful. And I also think, like, what you were saying with them going after children for a certain reason.
Yeah.
That could touch on, you know, people have bright childhoods. You know, you see a child full of life. And when you get to a certain age, you know, your light dims a little. Maybe it's to trauma, maybe it's to, you know, depression or
Self-doubt.
Whatever it may be. Yeah, self-doubt. And so I think that, like, that's really cool.
Yeah. So yeah,
and I love
yeah, go ahead.
I love him confronting his father at the bar. And, you know, that touches based on a little bit of what you said about The Shining, how looking in the mirror, like whether his dad was there or not, or whether that was him facing his father through the mirror as himself.
Yeah.
What he felt his father was, you know? Mm-hmm. Like his father was going to be there. Like, and that could have been just him facing his trauma by himself.
Yeah. Speaking of the father, Henry Thomas, I meant to mention that to you. So Mike Flanagan uses a lot of the same actors over and over again. So like the little girl Violet at the very beginning is in The Haunting of Hill House. And Henry Thomas, also in The Haunting of Hill House. One of my favorite actors from my favorite film, he played Elliot in E.T. And then, you know, he's the dad in Hill House and the lawyer in Bly Manor. And he's in pretty much everything that Mike Flanagan does. So
I love how he reuses the actors.
Yeah.
Like that builds a rapport, and, you know.
Yeah. Alex Esso, who plays Wendy in this, is in at least Midnight Mass. I think she's in Bly Manor too, but I don't know if she's in Hill House. I can't remember. But yeah, so that's Dr. Sleep. Any other last thoughts before I spin the wheel?
No, I think if you haven't seen it, you should see it. And then if you didn't like it, rewatch it again because you're wrong. No, I'm just kidding. But they're both very good movies, and I think just the amount of time and thought that was put into most of the movies were it's amazing. The amount of effort put in.
It's funny.
So it's worth a watch.
It's funny too because, like, I think with The Shining, some people think it's like this incredible, amazing work of art, and there's a lot of people who just are like, I find it boring and I'm not interested in it, and, you know, I don't like the movie. You know, and I don't know how to reconcile those things. Like, You know,
Give me names.
Give you
I'm
names.
just
You know,
kidding.
I think it's just one of those things. You know, like look, I don't like Lord of the Rings. You know, some people love Lord of the Rings. That they're obviously really
It's a
popular.
genre.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I like adventure
It's a genre.
films. You know, so I don't know. Anyways, all right, I'm gonna spin this wheel. There it goes.
Oh
my God.
Oh my god.
It was almost another horror film, and then it just at the very last second went bloop to an action film. Interesting. I can't believe you've never seen this. We are gonna watch Speed, the '90s film Speed with Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock.
Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, Daddy Reeves and Mommy Bullocks, we love it.
Okay, good. Going in with a good attitude. I love it. I have seen this movie all the way through once, and I've seen bits and pieces over the years again and again. And I remember thinking it was completely overrated when I saw it in the theater. I was like, why do people really like this movie? So I'm excited to watch it again and give it another shot because people seem to really love this film.
Oh my goodness. I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
I can't believe I've never seen it either. That's crazy.
It is crazy. All right. Well, then until next time, ladies and gentlemen, all our little viewsters, bon cinema.